The first time Vanessa Calloway laughed at my job, she did it in front of a valet stand while handing her car keys to a 19-year-old kid wearing the exact same uniform as me. "Be careful," she told him with a smirk. "Apparently this is a career path now." Then she looked at me. Not angry. Not even cruel, honestly. Worse than that. Embarrassed. Like being seen with me physically irritated her. Yeah. That one stayed with me. At the time, I was 24, working double shifts at a downtown parking garage in Seattle while trying to finish night classes in software systems. I smelled like engine oil half the time. My sneakers were falling apart. My apartment had a heater that made sounds like a dying lawnmower every winter. Vanessa came from old money. Waterfront house. Country club parents. Summer trips to Italy like it was normal human behavior. And for about 11 months, somehow, we dated anyway. At first she liked the humble hard-working guy thing. That's what she called it. But people only romanticize struggle when they don't have to live inside it. Eventually her friends started making little comments. "So what exactly does he do? You still parking cars? You're too smart for that job, right?" That last one always came with fake sympathy. Rich people love fake sympathy. Makes them feel generous without sacrificing anything. I mostly ignored it. Not because it didn't bother me. It did. More than I admitted back then. But I grew up watching my dad work loading docks for 30 years without complaining once, so somewhere in my brain I connected dignity with silence. Maybe that was unhealthy. I don't know. Anyway, the relationship finally cracked at a rooftop party overlooking Elliott Bay. One of Vanessa's friends had just gotten engaged to some venture capitalist guy who wore loafers without socks in November. Everybody acted like he cured cancer. Vanessa had too much wine that night. That mattered. Because alcohol doesn't create disrespect. It just removes the editing software. One of her friends asked me if I was still doing the parking thing. Before I could answer, Vanessa laughed softly and said, "Well, somebody has to move the cars while the rest of us own them." Everybody chuckled. Not huge laughter. Honestly, that almost made it worse. Just enough. Just enough to let me know exactly where I stood in that world. I remember staring at the city lights behind them thinking, wow. She really doesn't respect me at all. That was the moment. Not the breakup itself. The realization before it. I left maybe 15 minutes later. Vanessa called 3 times that night. I didn't answer. 2 days later she came by my apartment wearing sunglasses worth more than my monthly rent and said, "You're seriously ending this over one joke?" I looked at her for a second. Then I said, "No. I'm ending it because it wasn't a joke to you." She rolled her eyes like I was exhausting. "You're too sensitive sometimes, Adrian." There it was again. That tone. Like my self-respect was inconvenient. So I nodded and said, "Yeah. Maybe." Then I closed the door. Honestly? The next couple years sucked. People skip that part in success stories. They jump straight from humiliation to triumph like life edits itself for dramatic pacing. Mine didn't. I kept working mornings at the garage while freelancing coding projects at night. Most clients underpaid me. Some disappeared without paying at all. There were weeks I survived on protein bars and cheap noodles because rent kept climbing. Meanwhile, social media kept feeding me updates about Vanessa's life. New yacht pictures. Luxury vacations. Then came wedding photos with her husband, Grant Ellison. Tall guy. Expensive smile. Family-owned logistics company. The kind of man who looked correct standing beside her. I muted everything after that. Not out of heartbreak exactly. More because comparison makes people weird. And I didn't want to become bitter. Still, every once in a while, I'd hear her voice in my head. Apparently this is a career path now. Funny thing is, she was accidentally right. Because parking cars taught me more about business than college ever did. You notice patterns when people ignore you. You learn how wealthy people behave when they think workers are invisible. You learn timing, observation, ego management. Most importantly, you learn this. The loudest people in expensive rooms usually understand the least. Around year 6, things finally shifted. A warehouse scheduling software I built for a small shipping company started getting attention. Nothing flashy at first. Just efficient. Efficient changes everything in logistics. Within 18 months, 3 regional companies licensed it. Then 8. Then 21. I hired employees. Opened an office. Expanded into freight analytics. By year 10, Mercer Flow Technologies had contracts across the West Coast. That still sounds surreal saying out loud. Even now. Because internally I still felt like the exhausted guy eating noodles beside a broken heater. Success doesn't immediately update your nervous system. Anyway. The funny part happened on a rainy Tuesday morning during acquisition talks with Ellison Freight Holdings. Yeah. That Ellison. I didn't know the company name when the meeting got scheduled. My executive assistant handled most of the preliminary screening. I walked into the conference room carrying coffee and nearly stopped cold. Grant sat at the table flipping through documents. Vanessa sat beside him. Older now. Sharper around the eyes. Still beautiful, honestly. And immediately uncomfortable. Nobody recognized me at first. That part was incredible. 10 years of struggle, rebuilding, sleepless nights, and somehow I'd become invisible to them all over again. Then Vanessa looked up fully. Her face changed instantly. "Oh my God," she said quietly. Grant frowned. "You know him?" Before she answered, I sat down at the head of the table. That's when the silence hit. Real silence. Heavy silence. The kind where air conditioning suddenly sounds aggressive. Grant looked between us. "Wait." Vanessa stared at me like her brain couldn't organize the information correctly. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. I smiled politely and said, "Good to see you both." Nobody spoke for maybe 5 seconds. Then Grant slowly looked at the company logo behind me. Then at the presentation screen. Then back at me. "You're the CEO?" "Yeah," I said calmly. I guess this became a career path after all. Vanessa physically flinched. Not dramatically. Just a tiny reaction. But I noticed. Of course I noticed. People underestimate quiet men because they think silence means lack of awareness. Usually it means the opposite. Grant tried recovering quickly. Corporate guys always do. He laughed awkwardly. Small world. Very. The meeting moved forward, but honestly the energy never recovered. Grant kept over-explaining numbers. Vanessa barely spoke. And slowly, piece by piece, I realized something important. Their company was struggling badly. Cash flow issues. Delayed contracts. Operational inefficiencies everywhere. Meanwhile Mercer Flow had become the exact technology they needed to survive. That irony almost made me laugh. The valet guy now controlled whether their logistics network stayed competitive. Life gets weird sometimes. After the meeting ended, Vanessa lingered while Grant stepped out for a phone call. She looked around my office quietly. "You really built all this?" "Yeah." Another silence. Then she said, softer this time, "I was awful to you." I leaned back slightly. "You were young." "No," she said. "I was arrogant. That surprised me. Not because she admitted it. Because she sounded genuinely tired. Like life had finally introduced her to consequences. She looked at me carefully and said, "You know, after we broke up, my dad told me you'd never become anything." I smiled faintly. People said that a lot. She swallowed hard. I shouldn't have listened. Maybe 10 years earlier, that sentence would have healed something in me. But sitting there in that office, watching rain slide down 40-story windows behind her, honestly, I just felt calm. No rage. No revenge fantasy. Just distance. I said, "We were different people back then." She nodded slowly. Then came the line that told me everything. "I think I was happier before all this money stuff mattered so much." Yeah. That didn't sit right. Because money had always mattered to her. She just finally learned it couldn't protect people from regret. Grant came back a minute later, stressed and sweating through confidence. We wrapped negotiations 2 weeks later. Mercer Flow acquired controlling interest in Ellison Freight Holdings 3 months after that. Technically, yes. I became her husband's CEO. But weirdly, that wasn't the satisfying part. The satisfying part came later. One evening I stayed late at the office overlooking the harbor, watching freight ships move through the fog while employees filtered home for dinner. And I realized something quietly important. I no longer needed people who once mocked me to understand my value. That's when you actually win. Not when they regret losing you. When their opinion finally stops mattering at all.